Sunday, September 3rd, 2017, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So today I'm going to be doing the WebBot report for September, and it's for forecasts from September 2017 to September 2030. And this is a traditional WebBot report, or ALTA report, which stands for Asymmetric Linguistic Trend Analysis Intelligence Report. Lately, Clif has been focusing on just doing reports on cryptocurrencies and alt currencies, and he's been charging, $99 for each of these bare naked wealth reports. This is the traditional WebBot report that costs $15. So for those of you who are not familiar with the WebBot report and Clif and his work, I'm going to first read a little bit about what the ALTA reports are about and what predictive linguistics is about. And I'll take that from the report. So, and I quote, he says, predictive linguistics is the process of using computer software to aggregate vast amounts of written text from the internet by categories delineated by emotional content of the words. Predictive linguistics uses emotional qualifiers and quantifiers expressed as numeric values for each and all words, phrases discovered, filtered in the aggregation process. Over 80% of all the words gathered will be discarded for one or more reasons. He goes on to say predictive linguistics works as no conscious expressions are processed through the software. And he says, predictive linguistics is a field that I pioneered in 1993. The software and lexicon has been in continual change update mode since. This is due to the constantly changing nature of language and human expression. And finally, he says, predictive linguistics works to predict future language about perhaps future events due to the nature of humans. And he quotes, "It is my operating assumption that all humans are psychic, though the vast majority do nothing to cultivate it as a skill and are likely unaware of it within themselves." So basically, this is what it's about. Clif has these webbots that he sends into the internet, picks up data, and then he interprets the data and tries to make forecasts. He's not always right, but he is right quite a few times. He's been right about cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin. So let's start then this report for September. So he starts with the metadata. And just to let you know, this is just a brief summary. If you'd really like to read the report, I recommend you go to Half Past Human and buy the report. It's about 34 pages. It's quite long. I'm not trying to read it all out to you. It's going to be brief. So metadata, he suggests that increased attention will be turned towards Antarctica. That's the metadata. And then he talks about planet changes, says new currents in southern hemisphere related to climate change is going to have an impact in the summer of 2017-2018 in the southern hemisphere, and that it's going to change the weather. It's going to have drastic changes in weather in the southern hemisphere. For the northern hemisphere, he says that confused winter basically is the data that's coming up. He interprets it to be that we'll have extreme weather like winter droughts and record-breaking snowfall. That's for the northern hemisphere. And he also says that data sets are pointing to strange sounds and noises from the deep earth. And that's for late 2017. Talks about a lot of volcanic activity, Antarctica, also new agriculture because of diseases, and also new landforms because of the expanded Earth. He expanded planet. He calls it expando planet. There's a lot of data over the next year for that, and that's going to cause earthquakes, new land formations, tsunamis, and he says there's going to be a lot of binary weather, which is like basically extreme weather, too wet and cold or too wet and hot. And he says that ice age data is going to come into the media in the next few months. So that's planet changes. Global pop. Yeah, he said there's a lot of data about a flood. It doesn't mean like a rain flood. It's just like a torrent of information or torrent of news. It says flood to wash over global politic scandals. Secret information is divulged about new power sources. Earth changes, flooding, population movement. Actually, this is actually about flooding. And he says, you know, he's not trying to predict Houston because it happened already, but he says Houston is one of many. So we're going to continue to see a lot of earth changes affecting the climate, and there's going to be a lot of flooding, and that a lot of population is going to move from places. And this is going to be quite evident according to his data and his interpretation from September to November this year. Sudden catastrophic flooding. And also he says that labor pattern shifts forecast at least for the next 20 years. So the earth changes and a lot of the weather and the flooding is going to change labor pattern shifts over the next 20 years. And he also says there's going to be a lot of political and financial changes from September through November. That's part of the global pop. And then what else have we got here? Let's see. Yeah. He says other sets for informational flood and power sources are clearly pointing toward an outpouring of previously secret information that will include disrupting information about new power sources. These sets are further augmented by cross-links internally to new technology and perpetual sparks. So that's coming out. So now into pop war. So basically, you'd think, you know, with North Korea and what's going on, there would be, you know, quite a lot of about that. But he actually says that the emotional peak for pop war has you know, crossed. It's peaked. And but this sees a lot of data about false flags and fake events. And he says that centrism debunks the left and right paradigm. So nothing in terms of, you know, nuclear war or anything like that. He says there will be some, you know, events pertaining to like English pop, USA pop, and Scandinavia pop related to, you know, protests and revolutionary. He says it here. The data sets would have the core adherents being really nasty bastards in Scandinavia pop, England pop, and USA pop. A curious reference continues to hover around the Vatican. Well, that's something else. But he says that's not going to really last. It's the fringe. So that's pop war. Antarctica pop. For some reason, he says that Antarctica pop is being created as its own entity area within global pop due to the growing human population in Antarctica. The processing for this entity produces a view of the data that suggests that Antarctica will become the point or source for historical disclosures over these next 4 years. So that's Antarctica. Australia pop. Yeah, mainly he talks about data forecasting headlines will be saying stop it. Says Australian pop entity has new growth for yet more politicians swimming in corruption. He also talks about Australian pop sets have the great Australian pyramid starting to poke into the global public consciousness as new information is indicated to surface. He also says there's going to be entrepreneurial renaissance show up in Australia pop that include laboratories and new technologies, and that these new technology subsets are within energy and health. So that's for Australia pop. Canada pop, says strange new minerals are still showing up with Canada pop subsets. The growth in these sets are also continuing to bring space, goat farts, crosslinks that terminate in new technology breakthroughs. And it says there are new levels of rising emotional tones within these subsets in both short-term values and immediacy data that are suggesting new information will be coming out around the subject over the next 6 to 8 months. So let's see. Scandi pop. That's there is more pops there, but I'm not picking all of them out. More populations, more countries. It says the Scandinavia pop. The data set are not being kind to Scandinavia pop. The data has several layers that are indicating that anarchy and moral chaos is going to be developing in the background to the extent that sneaky violence breaks out into public view as the public is looking the other way. So, yeah, that's Scandinavia pop. Looks interesting. Spain, pick up Spain here, mainly because of Catalonia. Says the Spain pop entity area has many new sets for an effective social political movement that will see both the official loss of Catalan as well as the embracing of Catalan within this rising social movement. So these social movements sets are pointing at Spain, including Catalonia, as being the genesis for a new global, mostly Western republics, centrist movement. These sets are curiously showing centrists sets in conjunction with revolution and successful overturning of existing power. So that's quite interesting. So now USA pop. I recommend, there's a lot in the USA pop. I picked the points that I think are interesting. So I'll go over them right now. So let's have a look here. So he says the data sets for USA pop are more divergent than has been seen in model space over the last decade. The divergence has the growing set of the dropout cryptocurrencies unplugged off the grid, part of USA pop having a creative and positive mood with high levels of energy. The other large majority of USA pop is described with the same level of response to the unknown energies from space, but focusing on confrontation and narrowing of focus rather than the expansive and creative new view being demonstrated within cryptocurrencies economy. I guess that's related to all the new companies being formed by ICOs, even though a lot of them are going to be, duds, as I've said before. So he goes on, let's have a look. It says the majority sets within USA pop are seemingly narrowing their focus as intensity values rise toward confrontation. The supporting linguistic structures are bringing in detailed sets of yet more street battles, crazed officialdom, as well as city centers being seized and patrolled by our militias, exclusion zones, and global culture manifestations. The good news that is visible within the data sets is that the deep state and its agents are, as model spaces move through the next 12 months, increasingly weakened and ineffectual. These sets relating to the weak descriptor are extensively cross-linked over to sets involving money. the larger picture being presented is that the governance problems are relating to the degradation of fiat currencies and the debt implosion. That's pretty interesting. USA Pop. There's also something more about USA Pop and North Korea, which is interesting. It says USA Pop officialdom and the North Korea officialdom may well be involved in negotiations over the latter half of September. We have a number of sets that tie the Korean Peninsula to negotiations, deals, trades, and business. So that's good news. What else? There's a lot more here, but I'm not going to go over all of it because it's just too much. Let's have a look here. Okay. So this is more to do with finance, even though I'm not in the markets part. It says there are a number of sets that are cross-linked from the Renaissance over to the central bank system failure. The temptation is to draw the conclusion that the central banks failing to preserve their franchise is what causes the liberation of the entrepreneurial spirit within USA Pop. That's what he's saying. Many of these sets are suggesting that visibility levels will be rising for the entrepreneurial stories, such that it becomes a developing meme over 2018 and into 2019, just as the data also has the central bank's depression settling over the Western republics like a thick cold fog. So basically he's saying, yeah, there might be crisis within the central banking fiat system, but there's also stories of liberation and entrepreneurial spirits within USA Pop. So let's have a look here. Yeah, so that's it for USA Pop. Move into the markets pop. And I'll read here from the beginning of the markets report. It says the data sets for the debt-based market system have the cryptocurrencies going into breakout or breaking free mode against debt-based fiat. The data sets have the crypto space taking over the media chatter as model spaces move through September. Immediacy data is live here. He puts that in brackets. And all the way through to the end of March. He says the data sets have the cryptocurrencies being in a running mode that will last through early 2018, late February into March. The longer term data sets are there after indicating that the running mode moves into jumping from that point forward through the extent of the longer term data, which reaches out in 2019, albeit with decreasing reliability. So cryptocurrencies, according to his interpretation, are going to stay pretty strong. Let's have a look here. Yeah, he talks about that there's going to be a lot of talk in September about a black swan event. He doesn't know what it is. What else? Yeah, let's go into gold and silver, which is what interests us as well. Let's see. Yeah, he goes on to say here, within the markets entity, the silver and gold sets are growing in both volume of new supporting sets as well as emotional tones in all our categories. The recent processing is bringing in both confirmatory sets for disruptions and dissolving of blockages, both within the silver and gold subsets. Says the gold sets also have longer term data forecasting very rapid price rises within the spring season, Northern Hemisphere of 2018. The new spring for gold sets are showing a surge in demand, albeit within new markets. The new market sets are clearly forecasting successful new mining to marketplaces ventures that are to be coming online during the eruptive spring of 2018. So let's go here. So he goes on to say, and I quote, many new sets within the combined precious metal subsets include many indicators of the gradual capitulation to cryptocurrencies. And he goes on to say, this is not a bad thing at all. The data sets are indicating that precious metals and cryptocurrencies will be blending across the happy fall northern hemisphere period of the equinox, and the fall season will be very good for the ripening of this blended energy fusion. Many new sets continue to forecast disruptive technological innovations within both end user sector, mining sector for precious metals. Okay. He goes on to say more about the whole system. The long-term data types are providing a view of money financial turmoil that extends out into the 2020s, some number of years. This turmoil forecast to be quite visible by June solstice 2018. There are many sets suggesting that 2017 will be recorded in historical renderings as being the year of the spark. The next year will be the year of the flames within the financial system. So that's quite interesting. What else has he got to say in the markets? Well, then he goes on. That's it for the markets. He talks about space goat farts, which is something I usually don't cover that much. But he goes on to say, while the cryptocurrency revolution is well underway, the disclosure revolution that is forecast within the space goat farts entity does not start showing through the noisy chaos of 2018 until late in that year. At that point, the echoes of September Putsch 2017, the USA Pop Special Access Program, came back into the public awareness in giant strides toward new breakouts in secret knowledge by the failing system. So then he goes on to conclude his conclusion. He talks about the woo-woo world, and his conclusion is that there's an organic woo-woo world, which is what he's trying to come out and talk about. And then there's the GMO woo-woo world, which is basically people trying to infect the woo-woo world in the internet. And then actually at the end, it's quite sad for me and probably for a lot of you guys. He's saying that this will be the last ALTA report, and that he will focus on the bare naked wealth reports in the cryptocurrencies. He says we will not be continuing the ALTA reports after 20 plus years of this work, while now facing the demands of relocating our household and business, given the experience of recovery from the impact of the GMO woo-woo on the system, we have decided to stop the ALTA reports. At this time, he might bring it back. He says we'll continue to produce the bare naked wealth reports. So that's it for the September WebBot report. Please like, share, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. And yeah, I'll talk to you later. Bye.